Vivid verses.
The text arrived on a Tuesday, which is the day I've come to associate with minor inconveniences, a flat tire, a cancel meeting, the kind of news that asks something of you without apologizing for the interruption. Hey, I know it's been a while. I don't really know how to start this except to just start it. I heard you doing well. I'm glad. I was wondering if we could talk sometime. Just talk. No agenda. I read it twice. Then I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and finished making my coffee. Her name was Camille. We had been what I would describe, in the most accurate terms available, as complicated, which is the word people use when they mean something that took more from me than it gave back. She was intelligent in a particular way that I had once found magnetic. Quick with language, quick with a smile, quick to locate the precise thing a person wanted to hear. I had watched her work rooms effortlessly, pivoting from one conversation to the next, and I remember thinking that I wanted to understand how her mind moved. That curiosity, I now understood, had cost me more than tuition. We were together for what felt, in retrospect, like several separate lifetimes compressed into one difficult stretch of years. The relationship had ended not with a confrontation, but with a binder. A literal binder, 3 inches thick, navy blue, sitting on her dining room table like a deposition. I had placed it there myself. That was 14 months ago. I did not text back immediately. I am not a man who responds to ambiguity with urgency. Whatever she wanted, it had waited this long. It could wait another 24 hours while I decided what kind of answer, if any, she deserved. I called my friend Theo that evening. We had been close since our late 20s, the kind of friendship that doesn't require maintenance because the foundation was poured correctly the first time. He was one of perhaps 3 people who knew the full picture of what Camille had done, because he was the one who had sat across from me at his kitchen table while I walked him through the forensic accountant's findings, page by page, in a voice I deliberately kept flat. She texted, I said, a pause. Okay. She said no agenda. They always say no agenda, he said. The agenda is just shy. I know. What are you thinking? I turned that over for a moment. I'm thinking I want to understand why now. 14 months of silence, and then a Tuesday text. Something moved. Maybe she just missed you. Theo, I'm serious. Not everything is a scheme, man. She forged bank documents, I said. She invented a lender. She had a fake business registration that she kept in a real folder with real tabs. I'm not saying she's not capable, he said. I'm saying sometimes people also just feel things. Even people who do terrible things. I know that, I said, but I don't extend blind credit anymore. Not to her. If she wants to talk, she could talk in a format where I control the variables. Like what? Like coffee. Public. Daytime. 30 minutes, hard stop. He laughed, low and quiet. You and your architectures. They work. They do, he agreed. They really do. I texted her back the next morning. Sure. Coffee works. Saturday, 11. There's a place near the farmer's market with outdoor seating. I'll send the address. Her reply came within 4 minutes. That sounds great. Thank you for responding. I wasn't sure you would. I noted the 4 minutes. Not instantaneous, which would have read as desperate, but fast enough to confirm she had been watching her phone. Whatever she wanted it actively. I sent the address and went back to my morning. Saturday was overcast in the way that autumn mornings sometimes are. Not threatening rain, just filtering the light into something softer and more honest. I arrived 8 minutes early, chose a table with my back to the wall and a clear sight line to the entrance, and ordered a black coffee. I wasn't arranging for comfort. I was arranging for clarity. She arrived 3 minutes before 11, which told me she'd also arrived early and waited somewhere. Maybe her car, maybe around the corner. She didn't want to be the one sitting alone at the table. That was interesting. It was the kind of small social calculation that I'd stopped noticing when we were together and now couldn't help but see. Camille looked the way she always looked which was the precise version of the way she wanted to look. She had a talent for that, for presenting herself as exactly the image the moment called for. Today she wore something understated. No jewelry except small earrings. Hair down, but not styled dramatically. She was communicating approachable and genuine and possibly humbled. And whether or not the communication was calculated, I acknowledged it and filed it away and stood up when she reached the table. "You look well," she said. "So do you. Sit down." She sat. A server came and she ordered tea, and we held the particular silence of two people who have seen each other at their worst and are now sitting in public trying to remember how conversation works. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I was curious," I said. It was true, and it was also precisely as much as she needed to know. "I've thought about reaching out a lot," she said. "I started messages I didn't send." I picked up the phone and put it down. I didn't know what I would even say. "What did you land on?" She smiled, and even now it had a quality to it, something warm underneath the polish that I'd spent a long time believing was the real thing. Maybe it was. People are rarely entirely one thing. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "Properly. Not in a text. Not through someone else. To your face." I watched her. "Okay. I know what I did. I know the extent of it. I'm not going to try to explain it away or make it smaller than it was." She paused. "I was in a terrible place. That doesn't justify it. But I want you to know that I know what I took from you, and I'm sorry." I let the apology sit for a moment. I didn't rush to receive it or reject it. "I appreciate you saying that," I said finally. "I mean that. It takes something to say it plainly." She exhaled slightly. Something in her posture eased. "But," I said, "I want to be straightforward with you because I think you're owed that. I'm not carrying any of it anymore. I made peace with what happened. Not because what you did was acceptable, but because I decided that clarity was more useful to me than resentment." I picked up my coffee. "So this apology, I'm receiving it. But I didn't need it. Does that make sense?" She looked at me for a long moment. "Yes," she said quietly. "That makes sense. Good." We sat for a moment in something that was not quite comfortable, but was at least honest. I found myself recalculating. The apology was genuine. I was fairly confident of that. Camille was a skilled actress, but she was not a seamless one. I knew her tells, the small muscular events around her eyes, when she was performing versus when she was present. Right now, she was present. But I also knew that sincere emotion and strategic maneuvering were not mutually exclusive. She could mean this apology completely and still want something from this conversation. The two could exist in the same breath. I waited. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Go ahead. Do you ever think about what it would have been like if I hadn't, if things had been different?" I considered the question. "Sometimes," I said. "Less than I used to." "Me too," she said. "And then sometimes more than I'd like to admit." There was small, delicate, placed with precision. An opening. She wasn't pushing through it, just cracking the door and letting light spill through to see how I'd react. I didn't react. I took another sip of coffee and said, "What are you doing these days?" Her face shifted slightly, not disappointment exactly, but a recalibration. "I'm consulting now. Left the firm. It's quieter, but I prefer it." "That suits you," I said. "You always worked better without a hierarchy above you." She laughed, and it was the real laugh. I still knew that. That's an extremely diplomatic way to put it. I'm a diplomatic person. "You really are," she said. "It used to drive me crazy, honestly. The way you never just exploded, even when you had every reason to." "Explosions are expensive," I said. "Is that how you think of emotions?" "As expenditures?" "Sometimes. Not always." I set my cup down. "I think some emotions are investments. Some are costs. The ones that produce clarity are worth making. The ones that just produce noise aren't." She was quiet for a moment, studying me in the way she used to when I said something she was trying to take apart. "You've gotten more like yourself," she said finally. "I don't know what that means." "I think you do." Maybe I did. We finished our drinks, and when the server asked if we wanted anything else, I said no and reached for my wallet. "I have it," she said. "I know you do," I said, and paid anyway. She texted that evening, "Thank you for meeting me. I know you didn't have to. It meant something." I read it. I didn't reply that night. The next morning, I drafted a response. "I'm glad we talked. Take care of yourself, Camille." It was the kind of message that closed a door gently. No slam, no lock, just a door shut with civility on both sides. I was about to send it when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer, but habit moved my thumb. "Is this?" A woman's voice, slightly breathless. "I'm sorry to call out of nowhere. My name is Ines. I got your number from." This is awkward. "I got it from Camille." I was very still for a moment. "From Camille." "Yes. I know that's strange. I promise I'm not. I just..." She exhaled. "Can I ask you something very direct?" "Go ahead. Did she ever ask you for money?" The question landed cleanly, without drama, and I felt a particular interior sensation of several things clicking into alignment simultaneously. "Why are you asking?" I said, "Because she asked me for money. $40,000. There's a situation with her mother's estate, some kind of dispute with a creditor, a deadline, and she has all of these documents that they look real. They look completely real. But something fell off, and her voice tightened. I don't know who else to ask. She mentioned you. She mentioned you specifically when she was explaining everything, like a reference. Like you had been through something similar with her and come out the other side and trusted her." I walked to my kitchen window and stood there for a moment, looking at nothing. "Ines," I said carefully, "do not give her the money." Silence. "Do not give her any amount," I said. "Not a bridge loan, not a short-term transfer, not a promissory note. Nothing." "Oh God," she said softly. "The documents will look real," I said. "They're made to look real. The deadline will move if you get close to verifying anything. The creditor will be difficult to locate. The estate paperwork will have just enough legitimate-sounding detail to make you feel like you're being paranoid for questioning it." That is exactly. She said the attorney representing the creditor is in arbitration this week, which is why she can't. Ines stopped. "How do you know all of this?" "Because I know her," I said, "and I know the architecture." A long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "How much did you lose?" $60,000, I said, "over about 8 months. Recovered most of it through legal channels, but the process was not simple." She said you two were still. She implied you were still close. That you'd spoken recently, and... "We had coffee yesterday," I said. "She apologized to me. I believe she meant it. That doesn't change what she is capable of doing." I heard Ines breathing on the other end of the line. "Here's what I'd suggest," I said. "Don't confront her yet. Don't let her know you called me. Write down every document she's given you, every name, every date, every figure, and every deadline. Then take those documents to a forensic accountant, not a general CPA, specifically someone who handles fraud examination, and ask them to verify each entity against public registration records." That sounds like a lot. "It's about 4 hours of professional time," I said. $400, maybe 6. Compared to 40,000, it's an insurance premium. Another pause. "Why are you helping me?" she said. "You don't know me." "Because she used my name as a reference," I said. "And because I know what it costs to find out the hard way." I did not text Camille that evening. I sat with what I now knew and let it settle into something ordered and usable. She had come to me with a genuine apology. I still believe that. The emotion was real. But she had also, whether consciously or as an old reflex, used my name with Ines as social proof. She had leveraged our coffee, our reconciliation, our newly civil history, to make herself appear trustworthy to another potential target. That was the thing about Camille that had taken me so long to understand. The sincerity and the manipulation were not opposites in her. They were parallel channels running through the same person. She could genuinely regret what she had done to me and simultaneously be doing the same thing to someone else. Not from malice exactly, but from a compulsion she had never once examined. I understood her now, which was different from forgiving her and different still from letting it stand. I thought about what I wanted to do, not what I felt. I'd learned to separate those. I felt a cold, clean anger, the kind that doesn't heat up and annoys, but compresses into something precise and structural. I let it compress. I did not move on it until I knew what shape I wanted it to take. By 10 o'clock, I had shape. Ines called back 2 days later. The accountant found 3 of the entities, she said. Of the 6 companies mentioned in the estate documentation, 3 have no registration in any state database. The creditor she named, a firm called Holloway Advance Partners, doesn't appear to exist anywhere. No filings, no licensed agents, no digital footprint of any kind. All right, I said. The attorney she mentioned is real, she said. He's real. He's in arbitration, but he has no connection to any of the parties named in her documents. His name appears to have just been borrowed. That's consistent with what I've found, I said. What do I do now? I had thought about this. You have 2 options, I said. You can go to the police, which is your right and which I would support. The documentation you have is likely enough to open a file. Or you can do what I did, which is to confront her with the evidence yourself, make clear that you know, and walk away without giving her the opportunity to do this to anyone else. Those seem like very different approaches. They are, I said. The legal route takes longer and makes no guarantees. The confrontation route is faster, but depends on what you want from it. If you want her to face consequences in a formal sense, you go to the police. If you mainly want to protect yourself and make sure she knows she's been caught, you confront her. What did you do? I confronted her, I said, with a complete audit documented in writing. I gave her 72 hours to leave my property, and I had my attorney initiate recovery proceedings simultaneously. She didn't fight the recovery. Why not? Because the documentation was total, I said. There was no angle from which to argue. Ines was quiet for a moment. What would you do now, if you were me? I thought about Camille sitting across from me with the real laugh and the real apology and the borrowed name of a real attorney embedded in fake paperwork she had handed to this woman I'd never met before this week. I'd go to the police, I said, and I'd document the entire conversation with her prior to doing so, everything she told you, every claim, every deadline, in writing if possible. If she contacts you about the money again, respond by text, and let her repeat the story on record. Okay, she said. Okay. A pause. Can I ask, are you going to say anything to her? Yes, I said, but I want you to make your report first. Ines filed a report on a Thursday. She sent me a copy of the case number and the detective's contact information, which I did not need, but appreciated. I waited until Friday morning. Then I called Camille. She answered on the second ring, warm and unhurried. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Are you at home? A slight pause at the change and register. Yes, I'm coming over. 20 minutes. Is everything okay? I'll see you in 20 minutes, Camille. I ended the call. She lived in a second-floor apartment in a converted building with exposed brick and tall windows. I had been here twice before, both times under different circumstances. Today the door was open before I reached it. She'd been watching from the window. She was dressed casually, and her face was doing the calculation I recognized, the attempt to read mine. I sat down at her kitchen table without being invited to. She sat across from me. You're scaring me a little. You shouldn't be scared, I said. But you should be paying attention. Okay. A woman named Ines called me, I said. The calculation behind her eyes shifted, accelerated, arrived somewhere. Her face did not break, but something behind it went very quiet. She told me about Holloway Advance Partners, I said, and the estate documentation, and the attorney whose name you borrowed. Camille said nothing. She also mentioned that you used my name, I said, that you framed our recent conversation as evidence of your trustworthiness, that I was someone who had been through something difficult with you and come out still willing to share coffee with you. Still nothing. Her hands were flat on the table. That was new. The Camille I knew moved her hands constantly. She filed a police report yesterday, I said. The detective has her documentation, which includes copies of everything you gave her. 3 of the 6 entities don't exist. The creditor doesn't exist. The attorney does exist, but has no connection to anything. Camille closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were steady, and I had to give her credit for that. She was not a person who fell apart easily. I want to be clear about why I'm here, I said. Not to threaten you, not to punish you. I'm here because you used my name. You leveraged the goodwill of a conversation I had in good faith, and you pointed it at someone else. And I'm not willing to let that stand without saying so directly to your face. I know, she said. Her voice was quiet and entirely flat. I know. You gave me a genuine apology on Saturday, I said. I still believe it was genuine. I'm not revising that. But you were doing this at the same time, or close to it. And that's the part one can't reconcile. I know, she said again. I looked at her. She was not going to explain herself. That was interesting. Under pressure, with everything laid out, she wasn't constructing a story. She was just sitting there. Do you have a therapist? I said. She blinked. What? I'm asking seriously. Not as an insult. I know. Not currently. That's something you should change, I said. What you do, the way you do it, it's not sustainable and it's not random. There's a pattern and it's going to keep producing the same outcomes until someone helps you understand why it exists. Her jaw tightened slightly. That's a very composed thing to say to someone you're essentially here to confront. I'm not here to yell at you, I said. I've never yelled at you. I'm here to tell you what happened, what you used, and what I think you should do. The police situation is Ines's, not mine. I can't speak to what comes of that. I understand. Good. I stood up. That's it, she said. What else is there? She looked up at me with an expression I hadn't seen from her before. Not calculation, not performance, just something stripped and plain. I don't know how to stop, she said. I mean that. I start, and I don't know how to stop, and by the time I'm in it, it seems less like a choice than a thing that's already happening. I stood there and considered that for a moment. It was possibly the most honest thing she had ever said to me. Then you find someone who can help you figure out how to stop, I said. Not someone you can work. Someone who can actually help. Before the next one. She didn't say anything. She looked at the table. Take care of yourself, Camille, I said, and I walked out. The stairs down were quiet. The front door of the building opened onto a narrow side street where the morning light had finally broken through the clouds, coming in low and specific, the kind that makes ordinary things look briefly significant. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment with my hands in my jacket pockets. I ran through the inventory, which is a thing I do, not to congratulate myself, but to confirm that I had said what I meant and meant what I said and left nothing out of place. I had not raised my voice. I had not threatened. I had not needed her to collapse or confess or beg. I had stated what I knew, explained why I was there, said the thing that needed to be said, and walked out. Ines had her case number. The documentation existed. Whatever Camille did next was between her and the set of consequences she had put into motion. My name had been borrowed. I had come to take it back. I walked to my car, started it, and pulled into the morning without looking back. Theo called that afternoon. How'd it go? Fine, I said. Fine meaning you detonated something, or fine meaning it went the way you planned? Fine meaning it went the way I planned. She cracked. I thought about Camille's hands flat on the table and the things she'd said about not knowing how to stop. She was honest at the end, I said. More honest than I expected. Huh. He absorbed that. How do you feel? Clear, I said. Just clear. That's enough, I said. That's actually everything. A pause. You're a strange man. I prefer thorough. He laughed. So, what happens now? Now, I lean back. Now I go back to my regular life, which is very quiet and which I designed specifically to be that way. And Ines, her case proceeds. Her detective has good documentation. That part's not mine to manage. And Camille. I looked out the window at the ordinary afternoon going on outside. A neighbor walking a dog, a car pulling into a driveway, the unremarkable texture of days that don't ask much of you. She told me something true at the end, I said. Whether she does anything with it is her business. I said what I had to say. Most people would want more than that. Remorse. Consequences. A show. I know, I said, but I'm not most people. No, Theo agreed. You really are not. Ines texted me that evening, very simply. Detective followed up today. Thank you again. I think I would have given her the money. I wrote back. I'm glad you didn't. Good luck with the process. She replied. Can I ask, how did you get through it? The first time, when you found out, I thought about the binder. The 3 weeks of cross-referencing. The cold, methodical work of building an airtight record out of the rubble of what I believed was real. The particular loneliness of sitting with a forensic accountant at 10 in the morning listening to him describe, in professional language, the extent of something you trusted. I wrote, I gave myself exactly 1 night to feel it. Then I got to work. There's nothing in the anger that helps you. There's a lot in the documentation. She sent back a single word. Noted. That night, I sat on my back patio with a drink and let the evening do what it wanted. The air was cool, and the neighborhood was moving through its ordinary rhythms. Someone grilling 3 houses down, a dog barking once and stopping, the distant sound of a child being called inside. I did not run the inventory again. I'd done it once, and it had come back clean, which meant the chapter was finished and the chapter was closed. I thought about what Camille had said. I don't know how to stop. I had not expected that. I had expected deflection, or a secondary apology, or possibly anger. The pivoting to offense that people sometimes deploy when they have nowhere left to go. I had not expected something that sounded like an actual floor, an actual limit where the performance ran out. Whether she'd find the right kind of help was not in my hands. I hoped she would, in the detached and impersonal way you can hope for someone you've finally stopped being responsible for. What I knew, what I carried out of that apartment cleanly and without ambiguity, was that I had done what I came to do. I had been clear. I had been fair. I had been, as I always try to be, precisely as much as the situation required and not 1 degree more. The drink was good. The night was quiet. The patio was mine. That was enough.
Thanks for listening.